What's happening, guys? Today we are going to talk about how to get completely shredded the easiest way possible. Alright guys, today I have 5 tips for you to help you get totally shredded. And when I talk about shredded, I'm saying about single digit body fat for guys, probably about mid to high teens for women, and just get that really lean look. And honestly, this is not clickbait. This is something that I really believe it's a little bit more simple than most people make it out to be. However, there's a lot of traps that people fall into. So I want to cover some of that stuff, and make sure you watch to the end of the video, because I'm also going to give you a bonus tip, and it's something that almost nobody talks about when it comes to keeping the results that you get. All right, the biggest and most important tip that I can possibly give you is to have a lot of patience. Remember, easy and fast are not the same thing, all right? They're two totally different things. And getting shredded isn't something that's gonna happen super fast, all right? It's gonna take time. The body holds on to a lot more body fat than we give it credit for. When you look at somebody who's starting to get pretty lean, the difference between being kind of lean and being really lean is a lot more dramatic than most people think it is. So it takes a lot and takes plenty of time to get to that kind of elite level of conditioning where people are really kind of dropping their jaws and going, damn, that guy is lean. So it requires being patient. You know, the body has a lot of self-defense mechanisms against dieting, and it makes dieting really hard the longer you do it. So we need to take some strategies to make sure that we keep this from happening. So there's a lot of hormonal and metabolic processes that happen inside the body. These things adapt as you start to diet, and we need to be able to make sure that we get past these pitfalls, which there's 2 things I'm going to talk about, one being in the next tip and the other one being in tip 5 to help avoid these adaptations. Okay, so that next tip, going hand in hand with the last one, is to make sure that you do not diet too aggressively. This is a huge mistake that a lot of people make. Trying to speed up the process will only slow the process down. It will only make it harder. And again, it's because of these adaptations that happen. There's a lot of things that happen with your metabolism and your hormones along the way that if you do it too fast, yes, you'll see some faster weight loss in the beginning stages, but then down the road, it's going to make it that much more difficult to keep the process going, because you've already adapted down to the lower calories. So to see fast results, you need to do more cardio and eat less calories, but at a certain point that just becomes too difficult to do. If you just drop way low right away, you're not going to be able to make adjustments down the road. Not only that, but if you want to have that shredded look, obviously you need to have muscle, all right? You're not going to look shredded with no muscle. You're just going to look thin or skinny fat. So you have to have that muscle base. And if you're losing more than about 1% of your body weight on average per week, you're starting to really potentially sacrifice using more muscle than just losing fat. You don't want to lose extra muscle. So by trying to speed up the process and rush things, you're probably going to sacrifice some of that hard-earned muscle. You don't want to do that. Not only is it metabolically demanding to have that muscle, but it's going to give you that look that you're after. So make sure that you're not losing more than about 1 to 1.5% of your body weight on average weekly. All right, so you might lose a little bit more and you might lose less. You're not going to just lose exactly that much every single week, but you want to make sure that you're not losing too much more than that. So say for instance you weighed 220 pounds. If you lost 1% of your body weight, that'd be about 2.2 pounds. All right, so that would be for the week. So if you're starting to lose a lot more than maybe about 3 pounds at that point, then you're really risking losing extra muscle and seeing more metabolic adaptations and really setting yourself up for failure down the road. So don't go too fast. All right, tip number 3, I personally really believe you need to be tracking your intake. I just find that you're going to be a lot better off knowing how much you're eating so that you can make adjustments when things do stall. So I'm not necessarily against any certain diet. I just find that for most people, any kind of diet with name is typically unsustainable for that person. And there's nothing magical about any of these diets. They're all just different ways to put you in a calorie deficit. So you can do something like keto or whatever else, and you can get some results, but if you're not tracking and you don't know how much you're eating, how are you going to know what type of adjustments to make when things stall? And that's when, not if. Eventually, like I've talked about already, your body's going to adapt. So you're much better off knowing exactly how much you're eating so that you can make adjustments rather than thinking you're eating some sort of magic foods, right? They don't exist. So say for instance, you are eating 2,200 calories a day and you're doing 2 hours of cardio for the week, all right? That works for a while. Eventually your body adapts to this. It's no longer going to work, all right? Now you're going to have to make some adjustments. So now maybe you eat 2,100 calories or 2,050 calories, somewhere around there. Maybe add in 20, 30 minutes of cardio for the week, and now you can get things going again, all right? See what I'm talking about? Whereas if you just dropped all the way down to like 1,500 right away, now you're gonna be stuck and your body's gonna adapt to that, and now you have to get really aggressive, right? So in order to see continual results, you basically want to diet on as many calories as possible and do as little as cardio as possible while seeing results. So you need to be aggressive enough to make sure you're seeing the results that you want, but not so aggressive that you're going kind of back to point number 2, where you're speeding up the process in the beginning only to make it almost impossible to reach your goal long term. So if you don't know how much you're eating, it's gonna be almost impossible to make these adjustments. So you gotta get used to tracking. But if you don't know how to do this, if you're not aware of how to do macro tracking and my recommendations, what you should eat macro-wise, don't worry, I have a video covering this and it will be at the end of the video, so you can check that out. Okay, so point number 4 is gonna talk more about exercise. I touched on cardio a little bit on the last segment. I'm gonna talk a little bit more in this segment and be a little bit more detailed with things. However, first I wanna talk about training, because in order to have that shredded look and to have muscle, we obviously need to be strength training. But not only that, a lot of people make the mistake of, once they start cutting, they completely change the way they train, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep things relatively the same. As you have to understand that whatever you did to build the muscle is going to be what you do to maintain the muscle, right? So whatever is effective for building is also effective for keeping it, and that's the real goal of a fat loss phase, is to keep as much muscle as possible while losing the body fat, which is going to give you that shredded look, that diced look that you're trying to get. If you lose your muscle, it's not gonna look good. So we need to try to make sure we're maintaining it. So you gotta keep up your training intensity. You wanna keep doing what you've been doing, not change things dramatically. Now, obviously you just can't always do the same thing all the time, but you need to make sure that you're keeping on top of it. Now, with regards to cardio, how much you should do really depends on the individual. Again, it goes back to what I said, the less that you can do while still seeing the results you want is better. So some people can get completely shredded doing about an hour of cardio for the week. All right, other people need to do an hour of cardio almost every single day to be able to get there. It kind of depends on your dieting history, your genetics, your starting point, how long you're trying to accomplish this. All these different things factor in. So for you, what it's gonna look like, I can't say, but you're gonna have to make some increases when you start, all right? So once you start your cutting phase, you probably wanna bring up your cardio, maybe 40 minutes to 60 minutes per week. Now, this is not per day, this is per week, and then you can kind of divide it up however you want. I do prefer shorter sessions over longer sessions, because say for instance, you're doing 2 hours of cardio for the week. If you do 2 60-minute sessions, well, it's really hard to push yourself hard for 60 minutes. It's gonna be really difficult to get a lot out of that cardio. Whereas if you're doing a bunch of like 20-minute sessions, right, now you can push harder for those 20-minute sessions. So if you did 6 days a week of 20 minutes, you're gonna get the same amount of time of cardio. However, you're gonna get more out of that time because you will have pushed harder for those shorter increments and gotten more out of your cardio. So I do prefer the shorter sessions for most people. However, it really depends on you, your schedule, what's realistic for you. If you have to do the bigger sessions just to get it in, that's fine. You know, whether you prefer higher intensity or lower intensity or more HIIT type stuff is completely up to you. One of the drawbacks of HIIT cardio, where it's really intense, is that it's harder to recover from. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. If you're really blasting yourself with training and blasting yourself with cardio and blasting yourself with low calories, you're gonna get pretty run down. So you wanna make sure that you're able to recover. So this is where more low intensity type cardio can be a big help, because you're not going to beat yourself up so much. So kind of like with the calories, once you start seeing stalls and you can't see progress anymore, now it's time to increase your cardio. So maybe you do another half hour for the week, or you add a 20-minute session here or there or whatever. You're going to increase it from time, but it's just going to depend on you. Some people, like I said, can do very little. When I got to this type of conditioning, I was only doing 80 minutes for the week. For other people, they're gonna have to do a lot more. Genetics play a big role. I personally have a little bit easier time losing fat than I do building muscle, so you have to keep that in mind. Okay, and the 5th tip, going back to trying to keep your body from adapting to the lower calories and making the process much harder than it needs to be, my super secret ninja hack that really helps people tremendously and helped myself tremendously in my last cutting phase was to implement more frequent diet breaks. Now, I have done a few different videos on diet breaks in the past. I have a playlist with 4 videos on it that I will put up here somewhere. I'll put it at the end of this video that you can check out if you're interested. So I'm not gonna go into a ton of detail, but basically the premise premise is you bring up your calories a little bit, you bring down your cardio a little bit, you allow the body to increase the hormone production that has been suppressed, increase your metabolic rate that is suppressed from the dieting, and it puts you in a position where you can now see better results because you have increased your metabolic capacity and you have improved your hormones and you put your body in a better physiological state to be able to see more results. So I really highly recommend doing like 2-week diet breaks every handful of weeks. Again, now this depends on each person and how well things are going, but when you see stalls, a lot of times doing a diet break for a couple weeks and then coming back can really get things going again. And this way, you don't have to just continuously slash calories over and over and over again to the point where you're just running to the ground. Now, at the end of your diet, whenever you get to the nitty gritty and you're really getting lean, it's going to get more difficult. So you're going to have to push and you're probably going to have to really hone in to what you're trying to do and understand that it's going to get more difficult. But the diet breaks can really help with this and make sure that it keeps you in a good spot. Not only physiologically, but it's also mentally really beneficial to have a couple weeks of higher calories. So you bump up to around maintenance, you bring up your calories a few hundred probably, and maybe cut your cardio in a third or up to even a half for the week and just allow that recovery. And a lot of times too, that puts you in a position where now you start feeling better, you start moving around more, you have more life to you, and you start burning more calories just throughout the day just because you're not like just laying around like a slug because you're so tired from everything that you've been doing. So there's a lot of benefits to it, and not a lot of people are doing these diet breaks, but I'm telling you, they are so beneficial and they could really help catapult you into this shredded look that you were going for. All right, and as promised, I do have that bonus tip. This is the big one. All right, so you've gone through all this, you've gotten shredded, you've lost all the weight, you've lost all the fat, you're feeling fantastic, but now you got to make sure you hang on to it. You want to make sure that you don't lose these results because your body is going to be in a position for rapid weight regain if you're not careful. And if you just get there and then go back to your old eating habits or start stuffing your face, you're going to gain weight really fast and you're going to lose your progress, and you don't want to do that. All right, you want to make sure you keep your results. So make sure that you reverse diet out when you're done. If you don't know what reverse dieting is, it's basically a process of slowly increasing your calories over time, maybe around 50 calories per week, and getting your metabolism to adapt with the higher calories so that you can keep your results but get your calories up and not have to eat super low calorie forever. So I have a video called How to Stop Dieting Without Gaining Weight. You may want to check that one out as well if you want to make sure that you keep the results that you get. But it's really important to make sure that you don't just stop your diet and just kind of go back to the way things used to be, because you're going to lose it. You know, a lot of people lose weight, but not very many keep it. So make sure that you take your time coming out. All right, that's all I have for this one. Like I said, if you are not familiar with diet breaks, make sure you check out that series that I have. I will put right here at the end so you can make sure that you do that effectively. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you liked the video, would really appreciate a like. It helps out the channel. If you have not subscribed already, please do so. And if you have anything you want me to cover, again, leave that in the comments below, and I will talk to you next time.
I'm addicted to the love that you're giving. Every minute, every day I've been craving.